Okay, hi everybody. Hello and welcome. My name is Stefan, and I'm the program coordinator for America's Unofficial Ambassadors. And I want to welcome all of you to this first ever travel writing workshop that we're glad to be hosting today with Rachel Sales from Pangea. Before I get started, I just wanted to let everybody who's online know that just a little bit about AUA and who we are and what we do. AUA is America's Unofficial Ambassadors. We are a unique citizen diplomacy initiative dedicated to boosting the number of Americans who commit to volunteer service in Muslim communities around the world. This summer, we're operating 4 summer service internship programs across different countries. That's Indonesia, Tajikistan, Zanzibar, and Morocco. We're taking applications for the program basically up through March 24th for Indonesia, Tajikistan, and Zanzibar, and for March 31st for Morocco. So if you or somebody you know wants to do some really vital volunteer service this summer, I encourage you to check us out. We're at unofficialambassadors.org. Placements range everything from education to working with grassroots NGOs in each of those 4 countries. You'll blog, you'll do presentations or community presentations when you return. It's a fantastic program, so please do come and check us out. So part of the sort of impetus for today was that travel writing is a huge part of what we do at AUA. Every volunteer who serves with us will do at least 4 blog posts over the course of their program. That's 1 before they leave, 2 in country, and 1 sort of reflective post when they return. And we really, put a high premium on helping to kind of build the capacity of our volunteers as writers and bloggers. And a couple of our volunteers have actually taken part in writing for Pangea, and we've been really pleased to develop relationship with Pangea over the last year or so. If you don't know Pangea already, you really should. It's a fantastic online magazine and resource for women travelers. And I'll let Rachel tell you a little bit more about the site, but do check it out, and we'll be posting several of their articles over the next couple weeks just to share as well. So with that, I will turn things over to Rachel Sales. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. We're really glad to have you here, and I'll let you take it away.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, and everyone who's on the webinar, thanks for joining. So I just want to start off with a little bit of background about Pangea. So I know a few of you on the call, which is really nice that we have some foreign correspondents and writers with us. Anyway, Pangea is a community for women travelers. We are a platform that shares the experiences of women who are traveling, volunteering, backpacking, living abroad, working abroad, all sorts of different things from all over the world. And our goal is to provide the information that women really need to experience safe and fulfilling travel throughout the world. So we really invite everybody to share and to inspire, and we really believe that the women travelers themselves are the experts, and that that's how the world is going to become a more accessible place for women everywhere. Now, I don't know if this will work on a webinar, but let's give it a try. I'd love it if we could just go around and everyone say their names and either where they are, if they're on their travels right now, or where they're planning on going, where they want to go, and also how do they share their travels, or how do they write about their travels, blogging, journal, whatever it is. So maybe I should just say who should start, because I can see who's on the call. So Alethea, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Alethea Alden, and I was a foreign correspondent on Pangea for about 5 months, maybe, last year. And I'm American, but I live in London. I've lived here for 3.5 years. And it's been really fun to sort of call it the continent in England, and they refer to the rest of Europe, but to kind of have that at my back door and to experience going so many places so much easier than when I lived in the United States. So I enjoy writing. Not quite sure what the style would be called, but sort of maybe travelogue style stories about the trips I've taken.
Great, thanks. think next in my order is Daniel.
Yes, can you hear me, all of you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm Daniel Zaretsky. I worked in Kyrgyzstan in the 90s, and I've been based in Tajikistan for the last, say, 7 years, and that's where I am now in Tajikistan. And at some point, I want to write about my various travels, but uh, I can't do it right now because I have a joke. If I said what I really think, this country and half the countries in the world wouldn't give me a visa, so I'd probably have to do it after I'm done.
Fair enough. Okay, thanks. Joelle?
Joel, if you can unmute your up. Joel, can you hear us okay? Yeah,
Having
okay.
trouble unmuting. Okay,
You're
it's
having
okay.
trouble unmuting, okay.
Stefan, do you want to share?
Sure,
Here,
I
can you hear me now?
Oh, there's Joel, okay.
I was trying to type in, but that's okay. So, I'm sorry, there I am. I'm a student at UMD, and I did the AUA service program in Morocco this summer.
Sorry, Kitty, can you mute your mic? There you go. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So so I did the AUA service program in Morocco this summer, and I'm currently interning in the AUI office as a communications and outreach intern. And
Great.
Yeah, Joel did our Morocco program. You were teaching.
yeah, I was at the ASRU Center teaching English.
Okay, awesome. Kitty, do you want to share?
Kitty, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. There's a little feedback, but do you want to try to go ahead and just introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm at a Trist Coffee House. That's the feedback.
Oh, in DC.
But yeah, hi everybody. My name is Kitty Thurmer, and I have had some experience traveling the globe as a
Oh, I think we lost her.
Okay, does anyone else want to share? I don't know if I can't really see people there. Nan, Tanya, are you on?
Hi.
Can you if you're having trouble connecting, you can enter stuff on the chat box.
Okay, let me try that.
Okay. Mandy, do you want to share?
Yeah, sure, I'll share. Hi, I'm Mandy. I've been contributing as a irregular contributor and then a foreign correspondent for Pangea for about a year now. And I currently live in Tanzania, so I'm definitely going to look into that Zanzibar branch.
Please do.
Yeah, I will. So yeah, I've been in Tanzania for about 2.5 months now, just looking for a job here and then continuing writing and blogging. I have my own blog, my own Facebook page that I write on. So yeah.
Great, thanks.
No problem.
And Tanya? I don't know if you're there.
Hi.
Are you there?
I stay in India, Bangalore, and I've contributed a few articles to Pangea, which were quite a hit among my friends and fans. And from my background, I've just about started travel writing a couple of months back, and I did a course from Matador Hugh, which kind of propelled me into this. And I'm looking forward to do, a little bit of travel towards the U.S. by the end of this year, and that's what my plans are at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. So I guess the way that this is going to run is that I'm going to speak for a while, and then at the end we'll open it up for questions. So I know that I sent you all articles in advance to read, which we're going to discuss today. And if you didn't have a chance to read them or just to do some refreshing, I'm going to go over them a little briefly. After that, we're going to discuss what the articles do well and 3 travel tips that we can take away from these articles. And then we're going to discuss something that I think is really important when travel writing, which is the tone and the voice that you take. And after that, we're going to open up for questions. So first, the overview of the articles. We read on loss and overcoming obstacles in Namibia, and that was written by Erica, who at the time was a volunteer on World Teach, and she was also a Pink Pangea foreign correspondent. She just returned from teaching in Namibia. In her story, she brings us into a situation where she decides to go for a run, even though it is extremely hot where she's living. It's hotter than anything she's really ever experienced, but she's kind of tired of just sitting around. And on her run, her students catch up to her and they start running with her, and then they ask her to go to the cemetery with them. So she goes to the cemetery with them, and she leads us into a story about her students and how they all, how many of them are orphans. Either they lost one parent or they lost 2 parents, and just the hardship of teaching and living in an environment like that where AIDS and HIV are huge epidemics. And she feels like her teaching English, teaching these minute grammar laws is just a drop in the ocean, and she really can't do anything for them. It's kind of hopeless and helpless. But then she focuses on this young student of hers named Ambara, who is an orphan, and he has incredible motivation. He is really at the top of his class, and he's succeeding against all odds. And she basically says that he gives her hope for the future, and through individuals like Ambara. That's the first story. The second article is much lighter, and it's called A Girl's Guide to Moroccan Weddings, Say Yes to the Dresses. So this is written by a woman named Sarah. She's a recent college graduate and just finished her tour on Peace Corps in Morocco, and she brings us into a story of her attending a wedding in Morocco. And she starts us off saying that, she thought she had the perfect gift. She felt so savvy. She felt so immersed in the culture. And then it turned out to be the absolute wrong gift. And it's pretty funny how wrong it was. And then she goes on to say, don't be like me. Don't make those kind of mistakes that I did. Here's some tips for, surviving and really having a great time at a Moroccan wedding, which she says, you're sure to go to if you know anyone who knows anyone who knows anyone who's getting married in Morocco when you're there. So those are the 2 pieces. If you haven't read them, I encourage you to. They're really fabulous. So the first thing in terms of the tips for travel writing, which I think that these pieces both do well, is they really set the scene incredibly well. It's really important when you're writing anything that you immediately pull your readers in. Because now there's so much to read, there's so much out there. If you don't capture your readers in the first sentence, that's it. And especially with travel writing, you're asking them to go with you to a completely new environment. And part of the joy of travel writing is to have them experience your new location vicariously through you. So you really want to get them in with a story. You want to have them understand where they are, what this new environment is like, and really feel immersed in it. So from the beginning, they're going to be there with you, feeling it, immersed in it. So I'm going to read the first paragraph from Erica's piece, and I think she does really a great job at that. A few days ago, when the sun began to set and the temperature dipped below 100 degrees, I decided to take a break from sitting in front of the fan and mustered my energy to step outside for a run. I figured that with the increasingly sedentary lifestyle I was beginning to acquire as a result of the soaring temperatures, a bit of physical activity would probably do me some good. Besides, I was already dripping in sweat so profusely that a run would hardly change anything. I set off down the sand tracks behind my house and decided to explore the far reaches of the village. I didn't get far, however, before I heard distant voices yelling, "Miss Erica, the village!" Sorry, "Miss Erica, wait for me, wait for me." It was the children from a nearby homestead, and they were eager to join me on my afternoon adventure. I waited for them to catch up to me and heard little Thomas cry, "Run," as he zoomed past, ready to race. We raced a few times to various trees and homesteads, and when I could see that everyone was tired, we practiced cartwheels and handstands. Suddenly, a well-spoken little 13-year-old boy named Ambara, who I had befriended a few days earlier while tossing a frisbee, looked at me and asked, "Can we go visit my father?" So she does a great job here setting us up, because immediately she establishes herself as someone who's not used to this environment. She has never experienced this kind of heat. She's someone who goes for runs, and in this environment, there is no way, even at night, that she could run. She's just sitting in front of the fan, totally lethargic. But she decides, okay, let me go for a run, and then we see she starts going for a run, and her students are following her. The children in the community are following her. So now, immediately, she doesn't need to say this, but we know she's a teacher in the community. She's a foreign teacher in the community. We see exactly where she's running. We see the dust. We see everything that's going on. We're there with her. We know she's in Namibia, or somewhere, somewhere foreign to where she's from. And then we also see that she's beloved in the community. They really love her. They're not in school, and they still want to hang out with her. And she is excited to hang out with them, too. So, she wants to go for a run. They're getting tired. So she says, okay, do your handstands. And then Ambara says to her, "Can we go visit my father?" And all of a sudden, she turns the scene completely, and the tension starts. And we realize they're going to the cemetery. There's no father. The father's dead. And she brings us into the real situation here, which is these children are not just any children. These children are orphans, and that's not something that's rare in this environment. So she really gives us her new environment. She shows us who she is, and then she captures our heart. She shows who she is, and she takes us on this new, to this new environment, and we go to the cemetery. In Sarah's piece, I think she does an equally good job of pulling us in and making us feel invested. She starts with the following anecdote. The first time I was invited to a Moroccan wedding, I found myself ordering a single cone of sugar from the local corner store. They're going to be so impressed that I knew what type of traditional gift to bring, I thought to myself proudly. Next to Arabic mastery, the finer points of Moroccan culture are considered essential integration tools for Peace Corps volunteers like me. Sugar cones are the clutch gift for any Moroccan celebration, Morocco's gift card, a classy and indirect way of handing the happy couple some cash. Families will both use the sugar. If you've ever tasted the extreme sweetness of Moroccan mint tea, you'll understand where the larger portion of the cone will end up, and return the cones to local stores in exchange for money. Brimming with this much knowledge, anyone can see why a single sugar cone would make me so confident. As fate would have it, however, I slightly miscalculated my mastery of Moroccan culture, as well as my gift. Cones of sugar are meant to be given in mass quantity. Think Costco as opposed to dollar store. Despite this misfire, my single miskin, loose translation pathetic, sugar cone was accepted with a smile. I could see the subtitles beneath my host's empathetic eyes. Maybe in America people only give one sugar cone at weddings. Strange, but we'll take it. So she takes us into a very different, more lighthearted environment where she goes to a wedding in Morocco, and she feels so confident, about being in this new environment and really getting the whole culture thing, and she completely miscalculates. And immediately we understand where she's coming from. She tells us she's a Peace Corps volunteer, but what she also does is she references different things where we know where she's coming from. For example, dollar store, Costco, gift card. This is something that her readers can probably relate to. because they're coming from a similar place that she's coming from. So, you know, for her reader, they're reading the sugar cone thing. Immediately, we understand what's going on. And it doesn't hurt that she's using humor. That always helps. And with humor, the way that she establishes her humor is basically she is giving one expectation and turning it on its head. So I would say the first thing that we can get from both of those pieces are that just bring your reader in, give them a story, make them understand who you are, where you're coming from, and then, you know, you'll have your reader to keep going. The second part that they both do really well is sensory and clear description. It is so important, especially in travel writing, to bring your setting alive, bring your writing alive when you're introducing your readers to a new culture. So very clear descriptions. Don't take anything for granted, that your readers understand where you are, and especially with a foreign culture, you're going to really need to describe it very clearly. So Sarah does a great job of this in her description of the dress that people wear at the weddings. She says she describes the tuxedo as a garment that has 2 layers. The base is typically a long Hogwarts uniform-esque sheath with a high neck, long sleeves, and a floor-length skirt. The second layer is worn over the first and tends to be from a more loose and translucent fabric. Both pieces are anchored on the body with a massive bejeweled belt placed on the waist. So that's really a foreign kind of dress. I've never seen that dress in real life, but immediately she describes it in so much detail that it is very clear to the reader what that looks like, and we see it perfectly. And she also uses cultural references that help to bring it even more alive, such as, you know, Hogwarts-esque, Hogwarts uniform-esque. So she is, you know, probably rightly assuming that most of her audience is either read or seen Harry Potter. So she does that really well. Now, Erica, what she does is, you know, one thing where she does this really well in terms of using incredibly clear descriptions is when they go to the cemetery. And I'm sure we've all been to cemeteries, and, you know, we have our own views of what that looks like, and she describes it, what it looks like in Namibia. The plastic flowers that had been carried away from other tombstones by the wind and by hungry goats would have to do. We spent the next few minutes in silence gathering the remnants of plastic flowers that littered the area and positioning them neatly on his father's grave. So with this one detail of the plastic flowers, I think she says so much. Usually you would never think of that, but apparently in Namibia there are goats running around, and real flowers are going to be eaten by the goats. So we see that this is also a place where children are really accustomed to. Children go all the time. They know this. They come with their plastic flowers. They know you move plastic flowers. So that one detail captures so much in this piece. So just once again, the sensory, the clear descriptions, really take a look at the environment and describe it, you know, as though you're looking at a painting. Describe it for your readers, make it come alive, and think about those details that say so much more than just, you know, showing you what that is, but they say so much more about the setting and what you're getting from the setting, what you're experiencing from it. Okay, the last thing that I think that Erica's piece does really well, which I think is relevant to a lot of travel writing, is when people try to tie in bigger events, cultural events, bigger issues, you know, socio-political things, public health, etc. So what she does, which I think is great, is in her piece, she starts talking about the AIDS and HIV epidemic, which is really killing so many people in Namibia and so many of her students' parents. And she makes us care. And the way that she makes us care is she zooms in and then she zooms out. So she zooms in to her students, and she shows us her relationship with them, she shows us who they are, she shows us that, you know, in a way they're very carefree, and the other way they have like this incredibly serious thing, you know, background thing that they're experiencing and what they're affected by. So she gives us a story, she gives us people, she gives us faces, and we care. And then she zooms out and she starts talking about AIDS and HIV and the reality of that. Now, I think that is so much more effective than starting off talking about AIDS as an epidemic in Africa, because now we can really see it. We can see the faces. So when you're trying to write about the current events, I think it's a great thing to do zoom in and then zoom out. Capture a reader and then make your larger points. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about something that I think is a huge challenge in travel writing, and that's the tone and voice in your piece. So what I have found while editing, hundreds of pieces for Pink Pangea is that one of the greatest challenges of travel writing in a foreign country is balancing honesty without coming off ethnocentric. And this is what could come across in your tone and your voice. So just a little background on ethnocentric. What that means is it's believing that your own group or culture is better or more important than that of others. Or in layman's terms, it's thinking that what I do is normal and what they're doing, this other culture is doing, is kind of weird. So when we go to a new place, what we do as people is we compare what we're experiencing there to what we experience at home. That's just what we do. So we say, okay, well, they do it this way. Well, that's very different than what I do. And personally, it could actually annoy you. Like I'm not used to that. I'm used to this. I think my way is better. That's oftentimes what is the outcome. And we're people. We judge. That's how we perceive things. We compare things to what we know. So, but in terms of travel writing, I think that it's important to show what stands out to us, but on the other hand, to show it's different without coming off as judgmental. And a lot has to do with the tone that you take. So in a past workshop that I ran, we read a piece about a woman who described her experiences in Egypt. And she had a really snarky and biting tone in the piece. And she was expressing her disgust in having to change into a more modest outfit when she already felt like she was wearing a very modest outfit. So she was wearing, she was completely covered up, jeans and a long sleeve shirt, and she was told to put on a niqab instead. And she felt like, that's ridiculous. This is fine at home. And the whole time she had that, that snarky and biting tone, which really showed that she did not approve of her experience here as, in the country as a woman. And the workshop said, this woman is being really ethnocentric. So, is her anger justified? Is it not? And would she have been more powerful if she had just showed what was going on, described it, instead of using a judgmental tone? So in Erica's piece, she very much holds back from making judgment. She describes, as you know, how her students have lost one or two parents and how AIDS is a widespread epidemic, and she's really sympathetic and honest the whole way through. She never becomes pedantic, even though it's a very hard situation for her. She expresses frustration as a teacher, but she still doesn't become judgmental about her new environment. She says, I have recently been experiencing one of the low points in my service. Frustrated by the intermittent internet access in the computer lab, the promised funding for my school mural that recently fell through, the chaos of grade 10 exams and end-of-year itis that I am beginning to see in many of my learners. Imbara reminded me that I needed to finish strong. So she established herself as the newcomer. She's new, she's frustrated, it's hopeless, it's helpless, but she's not judging. This is the reality, and she feels really bad about it. She has much sympathy. And she even says here, she says, I have never been in their shoes. I don't really know what they're going through, and as much as I try to convince them that learning to write sentences in the passive voice is an essential skill in their lives, I know that it is not. I can do my best, but I know that for most children, my words of encouragement will not be enough. She's honest. She is clear about the fact that she's an outsider, and she is very clear about the fact that she's not going to judge. That's the tone that she's using. Now, Sarah also does not use a judgmental tone, but she does a very different thing. She adopts the self-deprecating and humorous tone, where basically she's the narrator and she's a foreigner, and nothing that she does really, jives with what's going on in that culture. Like, she messes up with the sugar cones, and she can't really dance as well as everybody else, and she can't sing as well as everybody else, so she just hangs out with the kids. So, her tone makes it clear that she's a newcomer, and she advises the community, the Pink Pangea community, that they have to get the hang of it. It's up to them to immerse themselves in the culture and get the hang of it as much as possible. And she says, look, her skills are lacking in comparison to the other Moroccan women, and that's okay. She says, like many of my Western counterparts, I'm incapable of moving my hips like Moroccan women. And the sight of a cameraman recording every moment of the wedding night might induce above average levels of performance anxiety. So she established herself as a foreigner. She has to learn the local customs, and she's never going to get there. That's just a reality, and it's funny, and that's okay. She's keeping that non-judgmental tone. She's only judging herself. So, I think that on the other hand, something that I want to bring up is I don't want to make a statement of what's right and what's wrong. I just think it's important that we are aware of the tone and the voice that we take. Recently, I've been reading a lot of Pink Pangea articles that have been about how women are harassed, and they experience catcalls abroad, and they are groped, and all sorts of terrible things. And they say, and they're very honest about this. But then they stop and they say, but the truth is that this also happens in the United States. Women are objectified, in the media, and just because I don't get catcalls on the street in the U.S., who's to say what's worse? And I always feel a little bit ambivalent about this, because I wonder, first of all, are they comparing their experiences in their new country versus the U.S. to get perspective? Maybe. Are they giving the readers background on where they're coming from as a writer? Or are they kind of giving us an apologetic? So, okay, well, bad things happen where I'm from too, so, all countries have issues. That's sometimes what I feel like it's saying. And my question is this necessary as a travel writer? Do we owe our readers this? And what do we owe ourselves? And for Pink Pangea in particular, where we're trying to give women the information that they truly need to experience safe and fulfilling travels throughout the world, I also wonder where the place is for that kind of writing. At the end of the day, if this is what your experience is in another country, this is what your experience is in another country, and we need to learn how to deal with that, how to overcome those kind of challenges. So I guess I want to turn it, to you guys, and for us to talk about this together of how can we bring readers into our experiences without judging the places where we're traveling, and is it okay for us to judge?
So what do we think, folks? I'll try to help get things off a little bit. I mean, with the Namibia article that you cited previously, Rachel, if I had to pick an article as an example, even though it's not from one of the countries where our programs operate, that would be a kind of ideal volunteer story article. That would be one of them. I mean, it does so well, you're right, at taking a personal encounter and then zooming out to this larger issue of HIV in Africa and in Namibia. And, I think that's in a way, I almost think there's a certain answer to your question in that article on some level, because you can say things without necessarily saying them, simply by pointing them out on a kind of person-to-person level, the things that you encounter throughout the day. And having been a writer myself, there's always your writing's not necessarily always a one-way process. That there's the reader and the interpretations that they're going to make from reading what you say, and sometimes you can allow the reader to make those judgments on their own without you having to necessarily kind of spoon-feed them your opinion every time. But it's one perspective, and maybe folks here would have others. I know Kitty has done some writing as well professionally. But what does everybody else think?
I agree with that. I have been also doing the Matador University travel writing school, which has been really valuable. And they talk about that, how basically you want to show everything, basically, as opposed to telling something. Like anything that you could possibly show with a description, you want to just use descriptive words to show what's happening, as opposed to saying, this happened or this happened. So then within doing that, to not just show the conclusion, per se, like not doing the best job. I'm trying to agree with what you were saying, Stefan, of leave it up to the readers to kind of figure out, some of what you're saying, as opposed to just blatantly pointing out everything. But that's a fine line, because you have to give them enough information where they can make that assessment on their own, but not necessarily so much that it's just glaringly obvious.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Not just giving people the conclusion right from the beginning, but letting them come to maybe the conclusion by themselves. But I guess as a writer, we're always trying to lead our readers to one place, to some place.
Right. Yeah, and as a writer, you need to kind of know where it is you're trying to lead them. But as the reader, you don't necessarily need to know right off the bat, where that place is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the joy of, of reading, which is to go on that journey and not to have it be just like heavy-handed, like delivered in a very heavy-handed way, but to take us there, to take us someplace, and then have us, do the work ourselves a little bit.
Those are definitely the things I enjoy reading the most. If I sort of stop and think about that, that's going on when I'm enjoying it and reading particularly.
Kitty just dropped in a message here as well. I think self-deprecating humor goes a long way in travel pieces. I mean, that's something that the Moroccan article did extremely well, and I think Moroccan weddings especially are a great venue for humor writing, having been to a couple myself. Do you think there's any kind of particular approach? I mean, is the self-deprecating angle always the best, or I mean, I always think there's a kind of line between humor that's kind of appropriate and non-judgmental, and sort of the mocking aspect as well. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I always wonder about that, because in a way, it's like, why be self-deprecating? We're new to the culture. Like, as long as we describe ourselves, as long as the traveler describes herself as the newcomer, why put oneself down because they are doing everything wrong, or they're not immersed yet, or sometimes it's more interesting to actually read about the journey of getting immersed, and that's just the reality. But then again, it is entertaining.
It can be done in a way that's humorous without being like putting yourself down.
Definitely. I mean, I guess, it works both ways, where, when you go to a foreign country, also, you can say, often people will do the opposite. They'll say, oh, the locals here, they act like this. I don't do that. So, obviously, that is not the recommended one. That's completely using the judgmental tone. But I kind of feel similarly sometimes about reading something that's so self-deprecating. That it's, you know, we're, I mean, it's, they're experiencing it for the first time. That's okay.
Yeah, it reminds me so much of one of our volunteers working in Morocco last year who went for a journey with some of her students, very similar to the Namibia article, but instead she ended up taking a tumble down into a muddy bank and landing kind of covered in mud and being the butt of several jokes at her expense by the local kids. But at the same time, even though it's a little embarrassing, as a reader, you definitely get sort of a good feeling out of the story, and you can always just sort of picture them sitting there in the mud bank, kind of looking up at everybody. And the other thing that I also just getting into kind of what the pieces make you feel. I mean, the Namibia article was such an emotional roller coaster on top of all the sensual descriptions. I mean, first the joy of kind of walking with these kids, and then secondly the having it all sort of brought back to this kind of maybe not necessarily sad, but solemn kind of reminder of reality there, and those emotions are kind of hard to bring out sometimes.
Definitely, definitely. She definitely takes us on an emotional roller coaster. I would also say that, just as, in terms of the self-deprecating part, just as we don't want to, create stereotypes of the culture and the people in the culture that we're writing about, I think so too, I find it a detriment to the writing when the writer will create a stereotype of their own culture. So I think that, we should apply the same amount of sensitivity to the other culture as we are to ourselves.
Yeah, that's really important. I always try to be forgiving of my home audience as well. I guess it's also, especially when you're far away, it's also kind of a little too simplistic to kind of summarize all of American culture or the culture of whatever your home might be into a few sort of tidbits. So just bearing in mind that American culture is, of course, more than the things it's more than TV and pop culture and that kind of stuff. It's real people. So yeah, I mean, were there other things that people got out of these two pieces? We have a question actually from Kitty a little bit. She was just curious if you could tell you a little bit about how Pink Pangea got started, and I was kind of curious as well. I mean, it sounded like you were hoping to address particular need for female travelers as well, and can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So Pink Pangea got started. Well, basically, my partner, Jacqueline Michelle, and I are pretty big travelers. We always have been. I took my first solo trip when I was 18 after high school, completely unprepared for what I would learn about myself and just about traveling in general. And yeah, I had no idea. Even when I kept traveling to different places by myself or with other people, I would really plan very, very well, but I always realized that there were always things that came up that I didn't expect along the way, and those things always had to do with being a woman, just challenges that I experienced as a woman that other people didn't experience. And I would, always have my trusty travel guide with me, and somewhere in the middle of the trip I would turn to the page for women, and I would find reminders to bring my own tampons and not to travel in dark places. So I was like, well, that doesn't really help me, because I often had questions about, should I take intercity buses, a train ride in the Ukraine? That wasn't answered. How do you know if you can trust a hitchhiker as a woman in Israel? Or, nobody told me that jeans and a long sleeve shirt wouldn't cut it in Morocco, different things like that. So, these things kept coming up, same for my partner, Jacqueline. And then we were working in tourism together, and we we worked in like an organization that placed people in internship and volunteer programs, and they were always asking us questions about men, were they, traveling abroad, like how to deal with the men abroad. And we realized, okay, we're not the only ones with these questions, and the only ones with the answers are the people who have already traveled to those places. But how do we find those people? Because personally, I didn't know many people who had been to Morocco or the Ukraine or the other places that I ended up going to. So that's how Pink Pangea was born. Basically, we needed the answers, and we figured many more people needed the answers, and we started a community.
That's fantastic. So we're getting on to about 12:45 at this point. We'll probably have room for just a couple more questions or comments. Mandy, Tanya, you guys, or Daniel, if you're on and you have any questions or comments just about so that we can send Rachel's way, the floor is open. Okay, so I guess we'll sort of call it there. Rachel, thank you so much for this. We really appreciate it.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, please do.
Okay, yeah. So thank you all for joining us for this webinar. I do want to just say that, of course, I invite anyone who hasn't already written for Pink Pangea to write for Pink Pangea. Also, we are running tons of workshops in the coming year. We're running a few with REI in New York and New Jersey, and one that I'm really excited about is one in the Swiss Alps in June. Yeah, and we're just trying to gather information for women travelers to help make their experiences safer in different countries and just more fulfilling. So we're just excited for everybody to share.
That's great. Yeah, and we'll with our volunteer program this summer, I think we'll probably have a whole crop of interested young writers who will probably want to sign on and submit material as well. So if you are interested in joining our program as well over the summer, please do check us out. It's unofficialambassadors.org. We are running programs in Zanzibar, Morocco, Indonesia, and Tajikistan for this year. We're really excited for them, and blogging and travel writing is a great part of this. So please check out our blog. It's America's Unofficial Ambassadors at WordPress.com, and we hope to see you again and hear from all you again. And Rachel, thank you so much. This was wonderful, and stay in touch, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll catch you again soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.